Hello and welcome to the ManageIQ Sprint 182 review. This was a regular 2-week sprint. As usual, I will provide the overview. Kavya will update us on the UI, Adam on the providers, and Jason on the rest. So this sprint, we went down a bit in terms of number of pull requests opened, stayed consistent with number of pull requests merged, as we continue to finalize the transition to GitHub Actions and doing other things kind of that are for housekeeping purposes. And as you can see there, the bugs and enhancements roughly stayed the same at 52 and 22. That's the split. And then the rest were split across the other activities that have been going on. With that, I will turn it over to Kavya.
Yep, thanks, Oleg. Good afternoon, everyone. This sprint total 30 PRs got merged across UI repos, 15 bugs, 3 enhancements, and 12 others like refactoring, technical debt, and so on. Next one. Here, a fixed PDF print is only printing first page, which contains approximately like 10 records. So I fixed that bug here to print all pages and all records. Next one. AutoSD team fixed this bug when Cloud Volume is opened from Storage Manager summary, deletion is not working. So they fixed that. Next one. A right size for image is not a valid scenario. So I removed that button altogether in the PR. Here, provided dashboard charts are showing 1 day before date. So I fixed that bug here to show correct one. In edit provider form, changing region, zone, etc. fields is not enabling validate button to revalidate one more time. So Melody fixed that bug here. So that validation button will enable all the time. Zone collect logs tab is giving an error. So Melody fixed that bug here. Next one. When instances are opened from availability zone summary page, edit page is broken. I fixed that in this PR. Catalog item deletion is not working. I fixed that bug here. Next one. Zone collect logs edit is not working. I will fix that bug in this PR. Next. Jeffrey, this is an enhancement. Jeffrey converted 3 columns in dashboard to 2 columns. This is as part of converting pattern flight tables to React. We want to convert dashboard table to Carbon and React, which needs more space than the current one. So plan is to convert 3 columns to 2 columns first. Next one. AutoSD team improved notifications for host initiators and volume mapping. Next one. These are a couple of technical depth PRs. In first one, we removed overlay dark PNG file as with or without it, we don't see any difference in functionality, and even visually, we don't see any difference. So remove that to fix some errors in logs. And another one is for node version. We downgraded nodes 16 to node 14 in all repos. I think ManageIQ services is giving an error with 16, so we want everything to be 14 now. I think that's all from UI. Over to Adam.
Thanks, Kavya. For providers this sprint, we enabled the capacity and utilization or metrics worker roles by default. This is to make it easier for people who want to set up metrics collection to reduce the number of steps that they need to go through before the metrics start coming in. We also fixed 2 storage scan failures. The first was if a storage had no hosts mapped, it was throwing an exception. And the second was if a storage had been archived but was still attempting to be scanned, it would also throw an exception. So both of those have been fixed up. We also fixed the provision supports feature check failing. This was introduced sprint before as part of some refactoring. We noticed this and got it fixed up. And we also bumped to the latest version of the inventory refresh gem, which is going to allow us to bump the Rails version in the future. Next slide. For Amazon, we fixed the refresh failure if one of the API calls to one of the AWS services fails, it was returning an empty collection when it was supposed to be returning nil, which was causing a refresh failure down the line. So that got fixed. AutoSDE added a targeted refresh call after a physical storage create or delete operation. This is a more effective way of doing it. Previously, it was doing a full refresh, but now that they support targeted refresh for these, it's much faster to just do a targeted of the one that you created or deleted. For Azure, we now run an API call against the to get a list of flavors when we are verifying credentials. This allows us to confirm that the credentials and subscription ID that you passed are going to be sufficient to do a refresh. Previously, the verify could come back as good, but then the refresh would fail if the region you specified you didn't have connection availability to. We also fixed a bug where the verify credentials method was completely ignoring the region that you passed it and falling back to default to US East. This allowed you to get green verify if you passed it anything, even if you didn't have connection to it. We also fixed a bug where the regions that are being automatically pulled down from the API when we go to see the regions for Azure, we were ignoring logical regions already. There are two regions that were physical regions, but they didn't have a physical location, which seemed a little weird. Not sure why they aren't logical regions. But we are ignoring those now so that they can't be selected when you from the dropdown when you go to add an Azure provider. Next slide. The Cisco Intersite provider has power management for physical servers now added, so you can do power operations on physical servers there. For Power Virtual Servers, they added a specific icon specific to Power. So that's a new vendor and core, as well as a new icon for the Power VS VMs. They also added regions support in a YAML file, falling in line with the most of the other providers that have the regions listed specifically in the regions file, and then loaded by core, as opposed to what they were doing before, where you had to enter an instance UUID and it would dynamically look it up, but that meant that you had to do an API call in order to figure out what region you're on. So this way you can figure out the region without having to hit the IAM service on Power. And for Power HMC, we fixed a bug where verify credentials for an existing provider was failing because we don't pass the password back up and down. It was looking it up from the database and there was a bug there. So it was blowing up if you tried to edit a Power provider, Power HMC provider. Next slide. For KubeVirt, we had an enhancement to collect from all of the namespaces. I just noticed a typo there. So we'll collect from all namespaces, where before it was only ever possible to collect KubeVirt from the default namespace. This is no longer the namespace that CNV gets installed to on OpenShift 4. So essentially, if you added a KubeVirt provider, even though everything worked correctly, you wouldn't get any VMs or templates returned. We're also now skipping non-VM templates. These are, so the OpenShift templates could deploy anything. They could deploy services, pods. And so the templates that KubeVirt as a provider wanted to collect are ones which could deploy a VM. So now we're filtering out all the templates which don't have the VMs as part of the deployed services. For OpenStack, Keenan cleaned up the ensure network manager method to bring it back in line to what we're trying to do to keep things consistent across all the providers and remove as much special logic in there as possible. And on VMware, we handled session timeout errors. If you exit the collector after the session timed out, it was raising an exception, which was taking down the worker, as opposed to what it was supposed to be doing, which is just restarting the collector. And that's it for providers. Over to Jason.
Okay, on the platform side, we had a lot of enhancements and bug fixes. Akil added a change to connect service requests to their automation requests. This will ultimately help us try to understand how the requests are tied together for better diagnostics. As Adam said, he enabled the CNU worker roles by default. Brandon added a change to automate the container build for the Amazon Smart State container, which for some reason didn't have it. So that was new this sprint. And Adam made a change to disable Kafka on the Nidorf branch. We're going to keep it on master, but for the Nidorf release, we're getting rid of Kafka because we're not using it. And Kafka uses the old version of Log4j. So we figured we'll just get it out of there for now until they can fix their stuff. On the bug side, Joe fixed an issue with DALI clients where they were using ThreadSafe instead of a connection pool. So the connection pool is like the new way that it's supposed to be used. So this change falls in line with that. Keenan made a bunch of changes to set same site for our cookies. This is mostly a minor security hardening thing. So it was done across a number of repositories, including Codified and appliances. Keenan also fixed an issue with quoted strings in the properties file. We had hit an issue a long time ago where an environment variable was set using quoted strings, and we didn't honor that. So this change now honors that. On the build side, Adam fixed an issue where symlinks and gemders were causing problems during the build. So this change ignores those. This is a byproduct of how we build our gemset RPMs. On the in the operator, Brandon fixed an issue to watch for network policies. So as they change, we can react accordingly. Keenan fixed a bug where dialog tabs, deleting dialog tabs would cause an issue in Rails 6.1 because the errors object is frozen in Rails 6.1. So this is more of a developer thing, but it would cause issues on 6.1. And he also fixed an issue with default value 4 on Rails 6.1 where it no longer works with certain attribute column types. Next slide, please. On the API side, Keenan made a change to move ensure supports into API resource. This is part of his refactorings that he's been going through to kind of trim up the API. Checking for whether something supports a feature is pretty common. So that was moved down into that method. Next slide, please. And on the developer side, Adam made a change to the more core extensions gem to support float formats such as 1.5 KI for that IEC method. I believe this was part of KubeVirt or one of those plugins. And Joe fixed an issue with our Brakeman security scans where it was ignoring paths that we had set. So even though the Brakeman scans were running, they were ignoring a lot of the code that they were supposed to check. Luckily, we didn't find any new security issues after that ran. So now we're much more comfortable knowing that we're safe. And that's it on the developer side.
Very good. And that wraps up Sprint 182. Sprint 183 is in 2 weeks, hopefully on this Zoom link. And if not, I'll try to update it. And with that, I want to thank the community, thank the speakers, and thanks to all the contributors of ManageIQ. And we'll see you in 2 weeks.